Hello BookTube, this is Kelly with Books I'm Not Reading, and this is the second installment in my series of videos for the Betsy-Tacy 2019 read-along. We are going to be reading all of Maud Hart Lovelace's Deep Valley books, which mainly comprise of the Betsy-Tacy series with a couple others. So I will have the schedule down below. I am co-hosting this read-along with Kate Howe and Katie from Life Between Words. So I will link to both of their channels down below. And if you do make a video regarding the Betsy-Tacy series, please make sure to put hashtag Betsy-Tacy 2019 so that we can find your video. And I do hope to eventually include a playlist of Betsy-Tacy videos from this series and from other booktubers on my channel, so watch for that as well. Next book that we're going to be reading in March is Heaven to Betsy. In truth, if you wanted to read the whole series, you could do it in a month. So I will keep encouraging you to participate in this series because you could catch up so easily. They're very fast books with illustrations and just a joy. I did want to point out also in Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown, one of the characters, his name is Winona, and we are going to be reading about Winona more later this year in Winona's Pony Cart, which is quite short. So these are the two books that I'm going to be talking about today. Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Big Hill and Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown. I will fully admit I have been struggling to make this video because these books, especially this one, are just so near and dear to me, and definitely of the first four and maybe the entire series, this is my favorite book. There are spoilers in this, but the spoilers are not things that will, again, take away any of the pleasure of reading the book or ruin anything for you, I promise. So the first book that we're going to talk about is Betsy and Tacy Go Over the Big Hill. And again, there are a lot of other things going on in this book, aside from what I'm going to talk about. On the other side of the hill is Little Syria. And I just think that's so... I was so shocked the first time I read this one, and because the whole refugee crisis, which obviously is still going on, but it was just on the news every single night. That was the first story, you know, people in boats and people locked at borders and all kinds of craziness. You know, people had left everything. They just had the clothes on their back, and so heartbreaking. And here Betsy, Tacy, and Tib, who kind of gets the short shrift in the titles there. Betsy, Tacy, and Tib finally decide to go over the big hill, and on the other side of it is Little Syria. And this was true for our author, Maud Hart Lovelace, as well. It had a different name than Little Syria, but there was a rumor that one of the girls that lived in that community had been a princess. So Maud decides that, yeah, there's going to be a princess in Little Syria. And of course, Betsy and Tacy and Tib are thrilled by that idea, like a girl who's an actual princess. And they don't find that out for quite a while, but the girl does get picked on in town, and these girls rush to her defense. And even the adults are a little appalled that the boys would, you know, misbehave like that, because some of these people are, you know, some of these adults in this are first or second generation Americans. And I think it's even Tib's mom who talks about, you know, that her own parents came from another country to America, and they might have looked a little bit different when they got off the boat than other people did, but so what, right? That's not what matters. Anyway, so I found it just really very timely when I first read it, and again, still just really resonated with me. The girls are 10. I don't know if I've said that. And this is actually, I feel like in the series, sort of a turning point book, because this is, the first two are really more like vignettes, and this is where we really start to feel like the books are a complete kind of cohesive story, and that will continue throughout the rest of the series. And then we get to Betsy and Tacy Go Downtown. And the first time I read this series and read this book, I was in tears at the end of it. For one thing, this book has a fantastic, beautiful, heartwarming ending. There's a great Christmas scene. There's just a lot of really, really beautiful moments in this book. The first time, the scene that really, really got to me was, and the girls were 12, the girls were 12 in this book. The first time, the scene that just broke my heart in a good way was when the girls go shopping. So Betsy, Tacy, and Tib go shopping. They take Winona, I think, along with them, and it's all imaginary money, right? So they don't have anything. They're just pretending to shop. It's exactly the kind of thing that my friends and I would have done. This time around, though, what really got to me was the chapter on Betsy's desk. So Betsy is always inventing stories from the beginning of the series. And this is the first time, like, that it's sort of verbalized. Like, Betsy's always wanted to be a writer. She knows she wants to be a writer. The start of the book, she's up in a tree and she's got, I think, a cigar box, I'm not sure, nailed onto a branch in the tree. Not sure how good that was for the tree, but anyway, she keeps like her little pencils, and her father runs a shoe store, and he has little ledger books or some kind of little notebook, and he gives them to her. And so she writes entire stories in these little tiny books. But anyway, it's starting to get colder, and Betsy's mom says, you know, it's truly Mrs. Ray's idea. She says, you know, you need a place inside. It's getting a little cold to write outside. And so they're trying to figure out, they can't afford to buy her a desk. So what can they use? And Betsy's mom had a brother who ran off to be an actor, and Betsy's mom still has his trunk with costumes in it, and so they kind of rearranged the trunk, and Mrs. Ray, she's just so wonderful. She's just such a great mom character, and you know, she finds these papers that are used to line drawers with like scalloped edges and puts them in the book, and there's a little special place for the pencils and the notebooks and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, Betsy's been kind of writing these sort of scandalous riffs on dime novels, and she's not really upset about that until she realizes that, like, her mother could see them, and her mother never asked to read her writing, but her mom sees them, and I just wanted to share with you what her response is. She said, "Betsy, it's a mistake for you to read that stuff. There's no great harm in it, but if you're going to be a writer, you need to read good books. They train you to write, build up your mind. We have good books in the bookcase downstairs. Why don't you read them?" "I've read them all," Betsy said. "Of course," said her mother. "I never thought of that." So in return, Betsy's mom and her dad decide that every other week she can go to the new library by herself with 15 cents so that she can have lunch downtown and go back to the library after she's had lunch. Betsy, you know, goes up to the counter and, "I want to be a writer, and so I need to read the classics, all of them." And the library doesn't shy away from her. I mean, the librarian, she gives her mythology, which I think that would probably be a standard way to start. She gives her Shakespeare, she gives her Dickens, she gives her Nathaniel Hawthorne. I mean, It's like intense stuff. There's one point where Betsy's on the couch reading the Pickwick Papers, and I'm like, oh my god, she's 12. I just read that like a few years ago. And but the thing that I just loved so much about the whole scenario was that everyone, Betsy's parents, Betsy's siblings, Betsy's friends, Betsy's librarian, everyone believes that she can be a writer if she wants to. And this is a different world we're talking about. There are mentions of female authors in the book, like Louisa May Alcott and Harriet Beecher Stowe. But I mean, there can have been a lot of examples for Betsy to read and experience. And so I just thought it was so moving to me because, in part, like, I wanted to be a writer when I was growing up. It started out with journaling and diaries. I wanted to show these to you. I think Betsy and Tacy would have particularly liked that one, don't you think? The shiny cover. And then, of course, this was also one of the first books. I remember writing things down. And no, I am not going to read you anything from them. And then down here, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this or not, but I don't know if you can see my trunk. My parents bought me that trunk when younger than Betsy is in this book. It was when Walmart was brand new, and yeah, they bought me a trunk, and it wasn't to write in or on necessarily. It was just a place to keep my things. And I still keep a lot of my childhood things in there, and I do keep all of my journals. This book there's just something about it that just gets me every time. So I will leave it at that, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I also want to give a shout out to Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, who read the first 2 books in the series and said he's going to read the next 2 books. We'll see if he has time or not. But and Jay Shea, who read Betsy-Tacy and did a review on that, which was fantastic. So I just want to applaud some male booktubers for dipping their toes into the Betsy-Tacy series. I think that's really fantastic. I can't wait to hear what you have to say on your own channel or in the comment section below. Remember to be kind to yourself and to be kind to others. Bye-bye.